Today's discussion will be presented in 3 sections since we are recording it for a radio broadcast on Federal News Radio 1500 AM. You're welcome to post questions and comments during the session, and we'll try to answer them online. I'd like to introduce our moderator, Jason Miller, Executive Editor of Federal News Radio.
Welcome to the discussion. My guests today are Greg Garcia, the Chief Information Officer at G6 of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Michelle Sparrow-Walker, the Department Director in the Information Resource Management Bureau Systems and Integration Office at the Department of State, Todd Simpson, the Chief Product Officer for the Department of Health and Human Services, Kelly O'Connor, a Product Manager for the Veterans Affairs Department's Digital Services Team, and Angie Heisey, the President of the Civil Group for Leidos. Welcome to the discussion today.
Thank you.
Let me set just a little bit of context for our discussion. Over the last 8 years since the Cloud First policy, one thing has become clear. Success in moving to the cloud depends mainly on understanding what applications you have today and rationalizing them for the future. It's the one thing to move email or public websites, but true success with the cloud, reducing costs, getting better cybersecurity, becoming agile, flexible, improving capabilities, is what most agencies really are striving for. Agencies seem to have settled on a hybrid strategy to moving to the cloud, using the commercial cloud for some less critical services, and a government-only commercial cloud or an on-premise cloud for other more sensitive services. Gartner, the market research firm, in 2017 said 75% of all IT managers they surveyed are using hybrid cloud to meet their needs, while adoption has increased by 13% in 2017 over 2016, while overall cloud adoption has increased by only 2%. At the same time, the effort to consolidate and move data centers to the cloud has seen some fits and starts as well. Agencies must close 25% of their tiered data centers and 60% of their non-tiered data centers by the end of fiscal 2018. The latest numbers from OMB on the federal IT dashboard show that out of 2,000 tiered data centers, only 198 have been closed so far, and out of 7,200 non-tiered data centers, 2,900 have been closed so far. Both are well off the goals. Still, cloud data center migration underpin the Trump administration's IT modernization efforts. Just look at the contracts from GSA, Alliant 2, Enterprise Infrastructure Solutions, or the EIS contract. Both of these vehicles are seen as the key from IT modernization. And just for a recent example, look at about the role the cloud will play in IT modernization. Look at the RFP for payroll processing systems. That just depends on the software as a service model. It's cloud, it's shared services, it's a new approach to federal processors that we really haven't seen and haven't been upgraded in the last 15 years. Todd, I'm going to start with you since you've been working in the cloud, seems like, for quite a while. Let's just talk about your role at HHS in terms of where cloud migration, data center consolidation, and all that kind of fits in. What's the strategy?
It's great. So my position was really created to get to the highest perch where we can start talking about platforms and true enterprise platforms and offer those services to the lowest common denominator. And the Chief Product Office is really designed, I think, to leverage the cloud and other tools like software as a service to drive microservices with the ultimate goal of bringing about more interoperability, reducing the duplication of systems that are out there, and driving our ability to use the data that we have available to us. And like anything, I think you did a great job opening up with where we're at with the cloud and all of these efforts, DCOI, the Data Center Optimization Initiative, from OMB, previously the Federal Data Center Consolidation Initiative. All these things have been morphed in driving infrastructure optimization and infrastructure efficiency, and cloud is just one more piece of that, in my opinion.
And you guys at HHS specifically, there's been kind of, I'll call it, small steps to get to the cloud. FDA's and NIH maybe are ahead of some other areas, but your role is bringing all that effort together into a kind of, I don't call it centralization per se, but at least a combined effort.
Right, so you bring up a good point. While I was at the FDA as CIO for those 3 years previous to coming to this role, we did remarkable things with the cloud. 8% of our application footprint is now in the cloud. We sponsored almost a dozen CSPs, cloud service providers, through our cloud brokerage model. I think we were running pretty fast. I don't want to take anything away from any other optives, but HHS just actually won the first FedRAMP 5 award for the large agency, and I'd like to think that the FDA had a lot to do with that.
Excellent. Now, Kelly, I was able to go to an event where one of your colleagues spoke about the wonderful work you guys are doing at VA. Talk a little bit about where the cloud fits into the digital services effort across VA.
Sure. So VA is already taking a cloud-first approach with new development. So we've launched close to 50 veteran-facing digital products over the past 3 years. So these are things like apply for healthcare, check the status of your appeal, find a VA facility. So like many other government agencies, VA has evolved to have hundreds of systems hosted across hundreds of data centers. So for those legacy systems, we are really committed to migrating as many of those as possible to leading commercial cloud providers because it's exponentially less expensive while at the same time it provides much better performance. So things like availability, sustainability, maintainability. So our role as a digital service team, we're a small team at VA, we play a support role, not just at VA but at other agencies as our IT colleagues lead this pretty massive effort to migrate hundreds of applications to the cloud using tools like our digital service playbook.
And as you look at your strategy and say we're going to use the commercial cloud, why was that the decision versus keeping it on premises or a government-only internal cloud within VA? Was there a driving factor besides maybe cost?
Super important. Why? So if you look at our digital service playbook, it's really important to understand the real problem. That's the first play. So we make data-driven decisions. So when we started looking at things around availability, we found that some of our applications are well below industry standards for a 99.99% availability. So we use data and we used user needs to really drive those decisions.
Excellent. Angie from Leidos, you guys are seeing this happening daily, so maybe talk a little bit about, from your perspective, what's the trends you're seeing around cloud migration, cloud strategies across the government and customers?
Absolutely. So Leidos is probably a little bit of a unique position because we've done about 1,000 cloud migrations across not only internal to our own company, but across all of our customer sets. And we really work with our customers as well as our internal CIO shop to determine, right, is the driver from a cost savings perspective, is it an agility and speed perspective, or is it a disaster recovery or security, right? What are the strategies and the real intent behind moving to the cloud? So that way we can put the right roadmap and strategy in place and determine which applications should move to make sure that we can achieve that end state goal for whether it's a customer or our own internal business processes.
So one thing when you talk about the right drivers and then what's the right roadmap, do you get a sense that agencies understand those two things, or is that still part of this kind of the pieces that need to come into place to really make the bigger jump to cloud?
I think most customers understand what their drivers are. It's really a prioritization to make sure that we're able to ensure that they achieve those results and prioritize whether it's which applications, if there's business processes they're going to have to change as a lot of times as a result of application rationalization. There's a lot of other work that goes along with it to be able to achieve that end result.
And I think, we'll get into all that other work that needs to go into it, I think, later on in the program. Let's turn to Michelle Sparrow-Walker from State Department. State also has been down this path of data center consolidation, but maybe less about the cloud. Give me a sense of where you guys are at.
Yeah, excuse me, yes. Our cloud strategy right now, we kind of have two trains on two tracks from the perspective that, well, first of all, IT at the department is decentralized, right? It's not all within the under the CIO's purview and the Information Resource Management Bureau. So our business units have independently moved out to acquire solutions that meet their individual business needs, platform and SaaS solutions that meet their individual business needs. But from an enterprise perspective, the CIO has been focused on moving mail to the cloud, collaboration, file storage, and things of that nature. In fact, we're on target to move about 50% of our mailboxes across the department, about 60,000 mailboxes, both overseas and domestically, into the cloud within the next month, actually. So, it's a pretty aggressive schedule, but again, our business units have sort of moved out independently to meet their individual business needs with their own IT dollars. But from an enterprise perspective, the CIO is trying to, move the enterprise solutions into the cloud. But from a longer term perspective, we're focused on, creating some centers of excellence from some of those early adopters of these PaaS and SaaS solutions, being able to gain some economies of scale by consolidating platforms and negotiating enterprise license agreements that will give the department a better price point for some of the things. We have business units that are going, we have multiple different organizations buying the same solutions, right? So, we know that there's a more cost-effective way to do that, but so the CIO's focused on trying to, converging those two sort of two separate trains on two tracks to bring things together into a more consolidated single cloud strategy. So that's what we're looking at in the future.
Now, the decentralization that state faces, and I've talked to several of your former CIOs over the years, that's probably the most difficult piece. The question, I guess, comes back to is how do you get people on that same train, right? If they're going, that the trains are diverging, how do you bring them back together? Yeah. Is that just showing value, or is that kind of somebody pounding their fist saying this will be done?
Yeah, well, the pounding of the fist hasn't worked. It's the State Department, right? Yeah. Everything's a negotiation, right? So, but I mean, I think it's the what's in it for me phenomenon, right? And so, what we really try to do, particularly with data center consolidation, going back to decoy for a second. When we started looking at decoy and OMB's definition, we did an inventory across the department. We found 100+ data centers out there that are outside of the enterprise data centers that we manage within the Information Resource Management Bureau. So what we try to help our business units understand is that the funding that they're using to spend on their own data centers, they can turn that money back into the business side of their mission if they move their infrastructure into our enterprise data centers. And so we're trying to focus on the financial aspect of it and the savings that they can see by either moving into the the enterprise data center or migrating into the cloud, which is also going to allow us to significantly reduce our particularly non-tiered data center footprint.
That's a great point about the what's in it for them piece. And Kelly, I know you guys, I'm going to move to Greg, but I know you guys have a great story that I've heard about VA reducing costs to move money back to veterans. I'm going to go to Greg instead. So Greg, talk a little bit about Army Corps of Engineers and your move to the cloud.
Your Corps of Engineers is in over 1,500 locations. We're very much like state, very dispersed population. And I think one thing that's a little unique is in the sense that we have a contingency response mission. So these locations are all across the United States, and during storm, fires, hurricanes, floods, these still have to operate. So that's the challenge, and those, for a lot of our civil works locations, we actually have satellite collections with the national government, with FEMA and NOAA. So there's a sort of a hybrid approach we've had to do because we have to have that connectivity of the satellite information to help inform the emergency response functions of the whole of government effort. So really we've turned to, as you've highlighted, the business functions of email, collaboration, presence and awareness, chat, moving to Office 365. We're in the moving to velocity migration this coming summer and probably finish in the calendar year. We also have 2 presence in AWS and in Azure for our public website activities. As you know, a lot of our information we do share directly with the public, and that's a continuing mission in environmental regulation and civil works restoration projects. So we really have that public end foothold in 2 clouds, the hybrid end of getting our business in there, and really we're partnering with the DoD and the Army to get to the for official use only aspect of that. And so we're really on that course to synchronize our app rationalization, our data center closures, to make that sort of not a 4 or 5 step process, but as short burst of success.
The cloud for someone like the Army Corps of Engineers, and really for all, I think everybody at the table here, offers so much potential. At the same time, there's still that I don't know, call it concern. Does Army Corps have other concerns because of the unique nature of your mission than maybe beyond the classified side and nature? But
big data sets, right? Yeah. So for like flood inundation mapping, we have to push big data sets around. So the question is, how do I get that cache locally to make a local commander have the information he needs to inform his his county, his state, his region about the life, loss, property continuum there. So part of that is when we push these big data sets around, we, in a national emergency, how do you have the pipes that are available in that? And that's really that blended hybrid approach, I think, where we can maybe store it in the cloud and then cache it forward. So when those contingencies do happen, we'll have that data available to make the informed decisions that we need to make.
The hybrid approach is one I hear time and again. Maybe bring Todd back and go first full circle of the discussion. The hybrid approach, you saw that at FDA. You're probably seeing that throughout all of HHS. That seems to be what people are comfortable with as a migration strategy.
I think it supports the cloud smart approach, previously cloud first. It was always cloud smart. People were always, I think, I don't think it was there was ever a time when people were just trying to throw stuff into the cloud. It's always been an arduous journey, and it's been a journey mostly driven by the customers because we're all in federated environments where the budget authority is at the lowest level. And I think the President's recent executive orders that he's been signing show that their leadership is aware of the need to align the 2210s down to the lowest level, and to start to kind of bring the budget and the IT stuff all on the same level. So.
Now, Kelly, you're probably the one outlier here about hybrid, is because you guys are such a big push to commercial. Do you guys consider hybrid much, or is that just right now depends on the workload, but generally is commercial?
Like I said, our goal is to migrate as many systems as possible to commercial unless there is a reason not to.
Right. And I think that's a fair point. I think everyone across the table would probably agree with that. On that note, let's take a quick break, and then we'll continue our conversation. You're listening to the panel discussion, Foundations of Enterprise IT, Modernizing for Secure Agile Government, sponsored by Leidos on federalnewsradio.com and 1500 AM.